Hi, I'm Edric, and welcome to the Epic Podcast, where anybody can inspire everybody. I'm really excited about this episode because we're touching on a topic that I've personally learned a great deal from, mainly from experience, and that's financial literacy. Okay, so on the one hand, that means savings. On the other hand, it also means getting into some debt. Okay, that being said, thinking about all of that is that I really think we should learn how to manage our finances a little bit better and also understand the consequences of what chalking up debt gets into, or even just how to manage it better. So, a friend of mine just so happens to be in the line of debt collection, and I think that why not? It'll be interesting to see things from the other side, right? So, for this podcast, I could think of no better an organization to represent than JMS Rogers. Just a little bit more about JMS Rogers. Now, they pride themselves as the leading asset recovery agency. Now, for over 18 years already, JMS Rogers has been the trusted household debt collection agency in Singapore, and they've got customers ranging from corporate companies to individuals. Hey, Fabian, thanks so much for joining us for today's podcast.
Hi, Edric. Thanks for having me.
We spoke a lot of about a lot of things right off the air, but I think it's only right for you to give your introduction to the audience. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Fabian William. I'm the COO, the Chief Operations Officer at JMS Rogers Global Private Limited. We are essentially an asset recovery agency. We deal with recovering debts, property, equipment, anything along those lines. A little bit more about me. I come from an ex-military background, ex-special forces. I have a whole different range of skill sets. I'm a coach. I do rehab.
Sounds like something from Taken. You got a very specific set of skills, and here you are collecting. You're the COO with a background in the military, in special ops. So what is it that you're taking out of all of this, right, and going into to debt collection in this case?
I do a lot with data, with communication, military operations, tactics. How do we do surveillance, gathering intel, ROE, rules of engagement, and a lot more. So bringing all those skill sets across to an asset recovery company, it's essentially the same thing which I used to do as a special ops operative. The only difference was assets there were people.
Something that I don't think the public would understand is that, number one, debt collection mixed together with special tactics sounds very threatening in some ways. But last we spoke, right, you were mentioning how you're actually dealing with a lot more empathy in this case.
Yes.
And this isn't about loan sharking. This isn't illegal activity, and this isn't like pressure tactics or scare tactics that you use on people, right?
Yes. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication that's gone on with regards to this industry in particular. I think even today, when someone hears debt collection, they always take a step back because the first thing that comes to mind is, are you an Along? Do you loan people money and do you throw red paint and hang things at people's door and harass them? To be fair, I think this was the image that a lot of people have been exposed to because of media. But in reality, number one, we do not loan monies out. We collect everything back. And the first step was to actually try to realign people's mindset and concepts of this industry. That's why we moved from debt collection to asset recovery. The moment we start using the terms asset recovery, it's not only changed people's purview of it, but it's also given us a bit more bandwidth to do more than just collecting money back. It could be other belongings. It could be vehicles, it could be properties, or maybe us exploring stuff such as people, finding people and bringing them back. But that's on a larger scale. When we come specifically to debt collection, why I emphasize on empathy, because a lot of people think that as a debt collector per se, we just go there and we muscle our way in just to take back the monies. But that's not how it works at JMS Rogers. I think the one thing that sets us apart from probably everyone else is the usage of empathy at different levels. And what do I mean by that? For one, of course, we understand what the client is bringing to the table. Yes, we hear them out, we understand the situation. But instead of just responding to the debtor in terms of demanding the money back, we always have that sit down with them to understand how they ended up in this spot or this situation, And the whole idea is for us to assist them to get out of it. I mean, if they could have gotten out of it themselves, they wouldn't be still in that situation, right? So there was probably a series of bad decisions that were made due to the lack of due diligence, or just bad choices.
Wonderful, wonderful. It really does sound like you're reinventing an industry to an extent.
Yes, we are trying very hard because I think we've gotten a lot of bad rep as an industry. And this is one agenda that we have, is to, let's try to redo the whole industry. And since we are already leading the industry, who better than us to set the benchmark and the standards higher, so that it becomes a job that people would willingly want to come and do.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now, that also, I mean, JMS Rogers is already a leader in this area.
Yep.
And now, by doing so, you're going to get even more more smoke. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So is that part of the plan, that you want more to follow?
Yes, because I think the pie is really big, and it's not about ousting other companies, but it's about value adding to everyone. Because at the end of the day, we want to grow as an industry collectively, not to monopolize and just take over everything. I mean, there are, like, Mr. Roger himself or our CEO says, literally almost everyone is a debtor. It's whether they get into that stage where it becomes ugly. So you really need a lot of people on the ground like us to assist these people out of this situation. And one company just can't do it. So let's be gracious and magnanimous enough to redo and reset the whole industry so that we can be leaders. And I think we will be looked at as an industry that's needed to be part of our ecosystem, rather than something that's very frowned upon. Yeah, like even me, when I first came in and I had friends or family around, and they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" How do you go from special ops to coaching athletes to suddenly debt collection? Like, what went wrong, Fabian? Are you okay? They started getting worried. I was like, what? Why you're worried? It's perfectly fine. But then I realized that's because they are not where I am. They don't see the people that I see, but they just have this predisposed concept of what a debt collection company is and the stigma that's already out there. So I realized the best way is to revamp and change everything.
On that note, we will take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to be looking into the asset recovery applications, as well as getting some advice in terms of debt prevention and what we should do about it. We'll be right back. Earlier on, we were just talking about that in the podcast as well. All right, how JMS Rogers is breaking the bias of what the stereotypical debt collection agency is thought out to be. But in fact, your agents are out there able to speak with the debtors as well as the clients directly, and allowing them to negotiate, to come together and form a viable plan of returning or paying up that debt. Does this work on a personal level, or is this actually for only corporate? Because I was very, very surprised, to hear that you actually do asset recovery for corporates, and I thought this was something that they don't do. So, what are the applications that you actually have at JMS Rogers?
The standard ones, of course, for individuals who have issues and debts to recover. That's quite common. The corporate one was when we say corporate debts or business debts. Cases would be like invoices owed, from companies, outstanding payments for products or services, from company A to company B. Maybe the issue of defective goods and then non-payment, company loans, company defaults in payment. So there's quite a whole range that works with under the corporate umbrella, and we provide this service for these companies because they obviously don't have a department that can go out and effect it, right? They might utilize their sales staff to try and retrieve, but there's only a certain scope that the sales staff are equipped with, and that's where we come in to effect this thing.
You see, okay, in my simple brain, all right, debt collection means I go there, I ask you for money, yes. I'm not leaving until I get it. Look on the corporate side of things, okay? When you help corporations in terms of asset recovery, now you've got to account for inventory. You probably also need to look at the legalities in terms of the parameters that you can operate in.
Yes.
Then you must also be able to understand the industries and again, with the empathy part of things, understand where both sides are able to come and meet down the middle, because they may not have the solutions, but would it be safe to say that you guys are expected to give them a solution?
Yes, I think that's why a lot of individuals or companies don't understand how intricate the entire process is, where the meetings have to take place for us to, number one, understand the client or the companies that want the monies or assets collected. And the amount of details that have to be collected is extensive because that will give us the legal boundaries that are involved. And then we can execute a plan and then approach the debtor. It's not so easy as, I just go, I knock on your door, and then you open the door, you see me, and you straight away give me the payment. It's not going to be that easy. So once again, the follow-up with the debtors, some of them go into hiding, some disappear. So, trying to source them out and then sit them down and get them to be comfortable talking to us. Because of course, if someone's hunting you down, you're gonna run, right? You're gonna be scared. So we can't deny the fact that there will be this whole fear thing going on with the potential debtors, you know. But
absolutely,
it's getting over this, getting them to sit down and getting them to understand that, hey guys, you know what? We understand that you got into this situation. We are not here to squeeze you dry and take everything away from you. But you need to understand that there's this level of responsibility you have to the client whom the monies are owed. So sit down with us and let's figure out a way out of this.
I was chancing upon your website a couple of days back, and there's a nice case study there, which I didn't expect, that you're actually working to help collect monies from scammers.
Yeah. So this is the new big thing that's hitting Singapore and probably the rest of the world now. So trying to hunt down scammers who, I mean, as we have read, in lots of cases where the elderly who, all their life savings have been scammed and cheated. And, there's so many people who fall prey to this whole myriad of scams, whether it's business scams, love scams, investment scams, Ponzi schemes, So once we get hold of this, it's really dissecting the entire scam and tracking the guys who executed the scam, whether it's individual tracking or corporate tracking. I just blanket it and say it's Intel collection for me and my team.
Right.
Basically we need to hunt people down. It sounds scary, but I mean the job is we're literally collecting intel on what happened, what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, and how do we zero in on these guys so
Right.
that we can take back what is due to the poor person who just got scammed.
In fact, I think just the other day I got scammed. Bloody hell. Supposedly supposed to go for some networking event, right? We got the tickets and all this. Okay, number one flag is that we paid in euros, so for a Singapore event. So something isn't right. But either way, went there to the place. The venue turned us away because they say, "Oh no, we're not associated to this at all. We don't have such an event." I'm like, okay, something just happened here, and I thought I would never get scammed. To be honest, I was one of those guys that thought I would never get scammed because those like DHL or postal scams that you get, right? They call you. And immediately they're obviously targeting the wrong people because the message is in Chinese and I don't really understand it. So it's obviously the wrong person. Same thing, love scams. I keep getting Chinese messages, but I'm like, okay, why? Number one, how do they even get my number? I don't know. And why do they have to keep sending it to me in Chinese? I just kind of wish they gave me a bit more variety lah. But anyway, that's jokes aside. Now, I wanted to understand for the audience point of view, how do we, number one, right, on the scammers, you've engaged them, you've met with them. What are they exactly preying on so that we can kind of understand their perspective and in a way protect ourselves?
Okay, because there's this whole range of scammers, right? And actually what you wish for is actually happening now. They are becoming very flamboyant in their attempts to scam people. You see, so of course the origins of the scams where DHL calls you up and tells you you have an outstanding payment, or even the courts, and then you have an outstanding payment, please pay it up, parking fine, please pay it up, to love scams. So at the end of the day, you know that scammers, because they're opportunistic people, they always throw out something with a very targeted approach. Of course, if they threw out a love scam, they're not going to get the guys who have no issues with falling in love, right? Your happily married guys, men and women, they're not going to fall prey to it because it's just not going to entice them. But it is definitely going to entice that pool of people who are looking for love. Likewise, when, like in your case, hey, I was supposed to go for a networking session. What happened? How did I get scammed for this? That's because that was your need. You wanted to go out there and network, and this thing appeared, and you would never have thought of, hey, should I call up and check whether there's such an event and is it happening at this place? And because it's so natural. So when people get scammed, it's not something that it's accidental. It's because you are tapping on their wants and their needs, for that moment. Yeah, so that's why when you technically can't blame all the poor people who got scammed all the time. Yeah, I mean, some, yes, of course, but in most cases, because the scammers are getting more diligent in who they want to target and who they approach it. Of course, the old school ones were caught on lah, and then people tell you that, oh, if you see a +65 on it, you don't fall prey to it, or if it comes in Mandarin or Chinese or something else in another language, don't fall prey to it, But then, how do I tell someone like yourself who just saw a course or an event that came up, and then you ticked on it and everything looks legit, because it's online, there are all the payment gateways available, and then you made the payment only to find out that, hey, how did I just get scammed? It looks so legit. Yeah, so I think that added step towards due diligence to actually find out if it's legit or not. It's very individual, That onus falls on us as individuals to actually go out and check, which most of us don't do, because I mean, we live in a world where everything is accessible and it's so open, especially in Singapore. It's like we're so safe, and yet we have this whole load of scammers around. It's very hard to differentiate. But I guess if we are dealing with bigger sums of money, it's always wiser to pause and try to do a bit more due diligence, which means go and seek out the professionals whom can advise you a bit better. You know, if you are dealing with contracts and everything, get the documents and get the documents vetted.
Right.
Or if you are going to be handing over money and everything, get it down in black and white. Once again, proper legal documents. There's so many legal firms out there. It's so easy to access lawyers, and they're very affordable these days. So get legal advice. Or even if you come to agencies such as us, our legal department is able to advise you a bit and redirect you to the proper agencies where you can get a bit more information. And I think that is what's missing, where information and the correct information. The mistake that happens all the time is the people go back to the scammers and ask them. So obviously they're gonna guide you down the path that they want to, right, to get scammed. So always get out of the circle to get information, and don't always base your information on family and friends, because then more people are just going to get scammed within the circle.
Right.
Just like how I was explaining about the case that we're dealing now, everybody got into that situation because they were all friends. So friend A is like, hey, I found a good deal, want to try, and then friend B, and then they just rope in everyone else, and then next thing you know, you've got 20 guys who just got scammed. So bottom line is, get out of your circle, try to get due diligence done in detail, and don't rush into things. Sometimes there's always this time limit, like, oh, you want this, and if you sign up now, you get a discount, and then people rush into it because they think like, oh, I can save a bit more, but in the end, they're just going to lose everything.
Right.
So yeah, always pause a little bit, get out and find out if you can.
So from moving from the scam side of things and getting a little bit more aware and educated in that area, I still also want to see it from our side, as in the consumer. Okay, now there's manageable debt and there's the debt that you guys need to come in. Because nobody's going to call you guys for like, hey, this person owes me $3.50 for a packet of noodles that he didn't pay me back for.
Actually, we did get the call.
Are you serious?
Yes, we got a call for a couple of dollars, but it was a very elderly person. And if I'm not wrong, the CEO actually took the call himself. Because now you have an elderly person who obviously has issues, right? But they were like, okay, someone owes me, I think it was $3 or $4.
Yeah, from
and
when?
can you help me collect it back?
1976?
Yeah. So no, it's actually quite recent. So it's you don't want to shun the person. Poor person. I mean, $4 to someone is a lot, right? And it's like, okay, how do we help you to get it back? We do have small amounts. We have like people who just want to collect back maybe $100, $200. To the most, what is $100, right? But this is where empathy comes in. To the
Right.
person who's asking for the $100, it means a lot. So, and that's where JMS Rogers comes in. I think we've done a whole series of pro bono cases where we help these small amounts. I mean, how do we even charge a fee for this? It doesn't make sense. My team of guys I'm proud to say that having taken over this team, right, just being in conversation with all my guys shows that, regardless of the outlook, they've all got hearts of gold, where they themselves like, hey, you know what? We will do this. Don't worry. Don't even have to charge anything. Let's go out and do this. It's like on the way, by the way thing.
Wow.
Let's try our best. I've seen my asset team collect back monies owed to aunties who do office cleaning, within hours. I've seen them collect money that's owed to independent tuition teachers, $100 or $180, which was owed to them by clients who don't pay. And I was amazed at how fast they got it back. These people were like literally begging for their monies to be returned or paid up for months, and my guys got it back within hours.
Wow.
So yeah,
They must have been
really,
so
even
thankful.
yeah, so when I saw how fast they worked, and I felt bad. I was like, oh, I'm gonna add on to my guys' workload. Yet, is it fair to them? But when they themselves say that, what, boss, don't worry, we will get it done, and they actually got it done like record time. I was really, really amazed. I'm like, wow, these are like special ops guys in a whole different light already. That's why I said the similarity is uncanny to me. I'm like, wow, these guys have the same skill sets, but I'm just harnessing it. But they have a heart of gold. Not everything is about, in today's working culture, it's like, oh, I'm being paid for this. Let me just do this amount of work. These guys go out of their way sometimes to help. So it's quite funny when you see one of my big burly guys, but he's so gentle when he's talking to the old auntie and like, don't worry, auntie, I'll get your money back. And then when he gets it back, and then the auntie's like, oh, I want to buy you something or do something nice for you. He's like, don't worry, auntie, And it's like, wow, where do you hear or see these things happening? Not everything is about dollars and cents. And even Mr. Roger himself, I think he set the culture in place where he himself has done so many pro bono cases prior to even us coming into the picture. And that's the culture that was already set. And we are just expanding on it and working with it.
Now, going back to the kind souls, the hearts of gold over at JMS Rogers, right? This was such an interesting thing because we are expecting, or the public expects, that the workforce over at agencies such as your own would have this, again, I'm sorry, this should not offend people, but tattoos everywhere, you look like you've been places, scars or whatever, just a very rough and gruff demeanor.
Yep.
So, but that's not necessarily the case at your side. I mean, when I went down to your office the other day, you could see that you had some, one or two who are traditionally from the business, and there are some that are new and I would say clean cut.
Clean cut, yeah. So, once again, we always tell people we need to understand how this industry evolved, right? So it's in the early years, in the 60s and 70s when debt collectors function. Of course, they were the Alongs and the ex-gangsters and stuff, correct? But as it evolved over the years, and then when individuals like Mr. Rogers came into the industry and tried to revamp the industry, there was always this crossover, where the old school, what we brand as ex-gangsters were in the industry, and then the new age people who are coming in, but of course, the ex-cons and the ex-gangsters were the bigger group of peoples. And now that we've moved into this new era, like people ask me, do you want to be associated with people who have tattoos and ex-cons? And my response is, why not? They are people. Why am I judging anyone? Who am I or who are we to judge anyone based on their history or their backgrounds? And we also need to know that all these individuals, right, they've got so much of experience that no education system is going to teach you about, and they're bringing everything in, and they've already survived so many years, and they've survived the industry trying to make a living out of it, right, within that small realm of their know-how. So my job here is to incorporate them into the system, get all this good info out, clean it up if necessary, and repackage it, and educate the new bunch of what we call the new clean cut guys, right? But it's now how these two groups of people coexist. So we need to respect all these senior guys because they're probably in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And that's what, basically that's what they want because they're older guys, when people respect them and understand them, they are more than willing to want to teach you. And the moment we have and we adopt that approach, right, even they are willing to learn new things because they obviously acknowledge, understand the fact that they also don't know a lot of stuff, especially all these new educated youngsters know a lot more, example, when it comes to IT stuff and handling all these things. So it's very nice to see the older generation trying to integrate and willing to learn. And you see the younger generation, when they put aside all this biasness, right, where they they realize that these guys are your new teachers because they're teaching you stuff which obviously none of you learned anywhere. You know, like how do you approach a debtor? You know, what do you say? How do you say it? You know, what do you tell a client in this situation? You know, and these are skill sets which are very easily, you know, transferred to the new generation because we have included and incorporated the previous generation of collectors in, you know. And of course, this non-biased, very inclusive approach of we are not judging anyone. Having tattoos doesn't make you any less of a person or a collector or a staff, you know. If you're an ex-gangster, it shows that you can work in a team, you know. So it's always taking out the positives, you know, and teaching and grooming the new generation to learn to survive and understand and embrace all this rather than go into that whole spiral of very judgy and exclusive behavior. Yeah.
And
so it's a two-way or two-pronged approach always.
right. And let's say, for example, now you are trying to groom the new group.
Yes.
You're trying to hire new people, you know, and get people excited to be part of this industry. So if, let's say, for example, you were to put a job ad in the papers or on any other portal, what are we expected to see, you know, in terms of the skill sets, the capabilities of the kind of people that you want, and what JMS Rogers' vision is in terms of that workforce?
Okay, like so far, we've been running a couple of ads recently, right? It's always based on the job scope, like what I expect out of this job. We have never included requirements such as, you know, certain race, certain language, a certain outlook, and people who always write in to inquire. It's always been a range of people. The team who's handling this is always open to come on in for an interview. Let's talk to you and find out. We have this very casual interview conversation going on just to find out what sort of a person this person is. Also to be aware, like we can't deny the fact that a certain portion of society always has its biasness, you know, and stigma going around. Are we okay functioning with this stigma going around, you know? Knowing that we are doing the right thing and we are changing people's lives and making someone else's life better. You know, when Roger brings me up to meet all these seniors in the industry, it's very hard for them to sometimes think I'm ex-military, right? Because they're more like jacked than me and tattoos all over the place. But you know, when they talk, there's so much of experience that I see, and when you're so willing to listen, right? They are so fatherly, and I mean most of them are. It was a male-dominated industry, so they're very fatherly towards you, you know. And it's very funny that, you know, they're like, oh, boy, have you eaten? How your studies? How's your family? You know, they are very concerned individuals. Guys, take the effort to go and talk and get to know these people. You'll be very surprised, you know, at what's going to come from the other side of this conversation. Because these are some of the most caring individuals that I've seen personally. And they genuinely care for people, regardless of how recent they just met you. So when I have this group of people in my team, I mean, number one, of course, I feel very safe, you know. Number two, everything is taken care of. And these are the hands-on guys who are willing to get down and do the jobs, correct? But just that they do not get the right amount of credit for all the work that they do. So I think it's us re-educating everyone and integrating everyone, because everyone has a role. Of course, in today's context, like, then people might ask, then why do you have all these clean-cut guys in your office then? Because when I engage my corporate clients, I need to engage the corporate client in a certain demeanor, in a certain manner. I need someone who's able to articulate well. I mean, I could send one of my previous guys, but will the message be lost in transit? Probably. But when I send them as a team, of course, my clean cut, new age, uni grad is able to articulate things better. But with the senior beside him, all angles are covered because the senior will be communicating with me, how about this? How about that? Do you consider this? But the person who's fronting it is someone different. But vice versa, let's say now I'm going to collect an asset from an ex-gangster who's going to be meeting at some dodgy place or maybe a coffee shop or something, right? Then the suited up young uni guy might not be able to get it across, right? But the roles just reverse. So now when the senior is doing the execution, the junior guy gets to learn and also give in inputs, whether it's legal coverage or stuff, and so it's a good team dynamic that's happening. And we're trying to grow this team dynamics because at the end of the day, like I said, there's no education system in place to teach someone to be a state-of-the-art asset recovery or debt collector.
Right.
The educators are literally the existing seniors who were in the industry. So my way is in integrating and incorporating them into our system and extracting all this information. Because if not, after a while, we'll realize that the information is gone because it's just going to go with all these guys, and these guys don't have forever. So how do we, rush this and integrate them in, and so that this whole new series of debt collectors evolves, but with all the skill sets that the previous guys had.
So that being, that's a wonderful vision. I mean, not only are you getting the wisdom of the previous generation, I would say that then you can use that to evolve it and groom the next bunch as well. And at the same time, you're not just taking the I would say the wiser ones, the elders, right, for granted. You're also reintegrating them. You're also re-educating them, getting them into a new system. And this is great because you're creating a very, very, very flexible workforce. In this case, you got the business side of things with some business acumen and smarts there, and you've also got the street smarts and the wits. Before we actually end, on the Epic podcast, we always have a rapid fire 10 question questionnaire called the Epic Questionnaire. So that being said, I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions. You respond with the first thing that comes to mind. Okay?
Okay.
All right, cool. So here we go with the Epic Questionnaire, and this is Fabian. One word that you love the most.
Resilience.
One word that you dislike the most.
Assumption.
If you could have a conversation with one person, living or non-living, fictional or non-fictional, who would that be?
My maternal granddad.
What do you say to yourself in the mirror every morning?
Okay, I try not to look into the mirror, but today I'm going to be the best version of myself.
Name one superpower you'd like to have.
Fly. I want to be able to fly.
Yeah. Okay. Question: why fly? Why fly?
Because I'm very impatient. I want to get to places fast so that I can do more stuff.
Got it. Favorite dish to eat?
Favorite dish to eat? I don't have a favorite dish, but the thing that really tugs at my heartstrings is always home cooked food. So whatever the wife or mom cooks, it could taste like crap. I'll just love it because I see the amount of effort that was gone into the dish, not really the taste.
That's a good way to save your skin. Mom, wife, if you're listening, forgive the man. Okay. Okay, question 7. Favorite travel spot or the next place that you'd like to go to?
I like racing a lot in the mountains. So hopefully somewhere where there's lots of greenery and mountains. I don't know. I just saw something on TV that showed that Scotland had a couple of places where it's very mountainous.
Okay.
So probably Scotland.
Cool. Scotland. Something in the arts that you've always wanted to do, but yet to do so.
Dance. ballroom dancing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Man of culture. Okay, not the internet man of culture. All right, this is really man of culture. Okay. Second last question on the question number 9. What does retirement look like to you?
Very far away. I don't, as much as I love the idea of, or all of us do love the idea of, retiring one day, but I think I'm too much of a workaholic and I like to always be involved and not feel redundant. So I probably will be, if I get to work, right, right till the end.
Right.
Yeah, whenever the end is. Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, how do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy?
This is interesting because this always came up in the coaching circle, right? Like, I always want to be known as someone who never gave up on the other person, like the other person, mainly like my athletes or students. I always believe in giving the opportunity because I am who I am today because someone was out there who gave me that chance, the opportunity to try something out. And I always believe we shouldn't deny another person the opportunity to step up. And I want to be known as a person or a coach who always gave the opportunity, and always helped someone step up.
And that was the EPIC Questionnaire with Fabian William, the COO of JMS Rogers Global Private Limited. Okay, so boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us for this episode of the EPIC Podcast. Again, we're available in both the audio and the video segment for this particular episode, so do check us out, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you the next time. Thanks again, Fabian.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, ciao.
Bye.